Honestly, Sarah, I don't know why we're wasting money on this. My mother's voice carried across the parking lot outside Michigan Stadium as thousands of families streamed toward the graduation ceremony. $60 for parking, $25 per ticket, and she's probably not even getting any awards or recognition. I walked 3 steps behind them, diploma cover in my sweaty palm, watching other families take excited selfies and hug their graduates with genuine pride. My parents moved through the crowd like they were attending an obligation rather than celebrating their daughter's achievement, which, I realized, was exactly how they viewed it. What they didn't know was that, in exactly 47 minutes, when Dean Anderson stepped up to announce the university's highest academic honors, my name would flash across that massive stadium screen in front of 107,000 people. And for the first time in my life, they'd have to confront the daughter they'd spent 4 years refusing to see. Share this with someone who knows what it's like to succeed quietly while others doubt loudly. This one's for everyone who's ever had to prove their worth to the people who should have seen it first. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm 29 years old, and I've spent 4 years at the University of Michigan earning a degree in aerospace engineering, while my parents treated my education like an expensive mistake they were obligated to fund. What started as their disappointment in my career choice had evolved into a systematic dismissal of everything I accomplished academically. The Chen family had built their identity around practical success and immediate returns on investment. Dad, Robert Chen, owned 3 dry cleaning stores across suburban Detroit and had achieved financial stability through hard work and business acumen that didn't require college education. College education. Mom, Susan, managed the books for Dad's businesses and handled rental properties they'd acquired over 20 years of careful investing. My older sister Amy, 34, had followed the approved path by getting a business degree and joining Dad's operations as general manager. Her practical education, immediate employment, and clear advancement trajectory represented everything my parents valued in professional development. My younger brother Kevin, 24, was studying accounting at community college while working part-time at one of Dad's stores. His combination of education and practical experience made him the family favorite for understanding real-world business challenges. Then there was me, the daughter who'd insisted on attending an expensive 4-year university to study aerospace engineering, a field my parents considered both impractical and financially risky. While Amy managed profitable businesses and Kevin learned applicable skills, I spent my time on theoretical mathematics, thermodynamics, and orbital mechanics that seemed completely disconnected from earning a living. Sarah's studying rocket science became Dad's standard explanation at family gatherings, delivered with a mixture of bewilderment and resignation. Very complicated, very expensive, probably not many jobs unless you work for NASA. The subtext was clear. Sarah chose an impractical major that required expensive education to prepare for careers that barely existed in the real economy. This perception was reinforced by my academic focus and social isolation. While Amy and Kevin worked part-time jobs throughout college, I devoted most of my time to studying, research projects, and engineering competitions that my parents couldn't understand or appreciate. "When are you going to get a job?" became Dad's standard question during semester breaks. Amy was working 20 hours a week while getting her business degree. "You're 29 and you've never had real work experience." What Dad couldn't understand was that aerospace engineering required intensive study and research involvement that functioned as professional preparation even though it didn't generate immediate income. My research work with Professor Martinez on satellite propulsion systems, my internship application to SpaceX, my participation in NASA's University Student Launch Initiative, none of these activities translated into the kind of success my family recognized or valued. "That sounds very interesting, sweetheart," Mom would say when I mentioned academic achievements, "but when do you start making money with all this rocket research?" The breaking point came during spring break of my junior year when I tried to explain my selection for a competitive summer research program at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. NASA chose me for their undergraduate research program, I announced during family dinner, expecting some recognition of this significant achievement. "That's nice, Sarah," Dad replied without looking up from his phone. "Is it a paying position?" "It's a $6,000 stipend for 10 weeks plus housing and travel expenses." Amy laughed. $6,000 for 10 weeks? Sarah, I made more than that working retail during high school summers. But it's not about the money. It's about getting research experience with actual NASA scientists working on Mars mission technology. Mars missions? Kevin joined though. Mockery. Sarah, when are you planning to live in the real world? There are maybe 100 people in the entire country who work on Mars missions? The conversation that followed was typical of every academic discussion we'd had for 3 years. My achievements were minimized, my career prospects were questioned, and my educational choices were characterized as impractical escapism from real-world responsibilities. Sarah, I'm not trying to discourage you, Dad said in his most reasonable voice, but you need to think practically about return on investment. We've spent over $120,000 on your education. When do you start earning enough to justify that expense? What my family didn't understand was that aerospace engineering was one of the highest-paying technical fields, with starting salaries often exceeding $80,000 and career trajectory as that could lead to six-figure incomes within a few years. But because the industry was specialized and the career paths weren't familiar to them, they assumed it was economically impractical. More importantly, they couldn't see that my academic performance and research involvement were positioning me for exactly the kind of competitive positions that would justify their educational investment many times over. The dismissal became more painful as graduation approached and my post-graduation plans became clearer. I'd been accepted to graduate programs at MIT and Stanford, received job offers from Boeing and Lockheed Martin, and was being recruited by SpaceX for their propulsion development team. But when I tried to share these opportunities during family dinners, the response was always the same mixture of polite disinterest and practical concern. Graduate school means more debt and more years before you start working, Mom observed when I mentioned the mid-offer. And those aerospace companies, aren't they always laying people off when government contracts get canceled? The job market concerns were particularly frustrating because aerospace engineering was experiencing unprecedented growth, driven by commercial space exploration, satellite communications, and defense spending, that was creating more opportunities and qualified candidates. But explaining industry trends and career prospects to parents who measured success by immediate business results felt futile. They wanted to see paychecks and promotion schedules, not research publications and patent applications. The final conversation about graduation attendance revealed how completely they'd written off my academic achievements. Do we really need to attend Sarah's graduation? Mom asked Dad while I was in the room, as if I were a decoration rather than their daughter. I suppose we should make an appearance, Dad replied with the enthusiasm of someone discussing dental appointments. Though it's expensive, and it's not like she's getting any special recognition. No special recognition. They had no idea that I was graduating summa cum laude with a 3.97 GPA, that I'd been selected for Phi Beta Kappa honors, that my undergraduate thesis on ion propulsion efficiency had been accepted for publication in a peer-reviewed journal, or that I was receiving the university's Outstanding Achievement Engineering Award at the commencement ceremony. I'd stopped trying to tell them about academic achievements because their responses had made clear that excellence in aerospace engineering didn't count as real success in their assessment of my life choices. But graduation day would be different. For once, my accomplishments would be announced publicly, in front of 107,000 people, in a context where their significance couldn't be dismissed or minimized. The ceremony began with a traditional processional of faculty and graduating students into Michigan Stadium. I found my designated seat in the engineering section while my parents settled into their ticketed spots in the family seating area, looking like they were fulfilling an obligation rather than celebrating their son's achievement. Dean Anderson began with opening remarks about the graduating class's achievements and contributions to the university community. Then she moved to the special recognition segment, where outstanding students from each college were acknowledged for academic excellence and research contributions. The University of Michigan takes pride in recognizing students whose academic achievements represent the highest standards of scholarship and innovation, Dean Anderson announced. This year's recipients of the Outstanding Achievement Awards have demonstrated exceptional excellence in their fields of study. The stadium screen began displaying photos and brief biographies of award recipients from different colleges. Liberal arts, business, medicine, engineering, each college presented their top graduating students with descriptions of their achievements and post-graduation plans. When the engineering college segment began, I felt my heart rate increase. I'd known about the award for 2 weeks, but had never mentioned it to my family because their previous responses to academic recognition had been so consistently dismissive. The College of Engineering's Outstanding Achievement Award, recognizes a student whose undergraduate research, academic performance, and professional potential represent the very best of our engineering programs," Dean Anderson continued. My photo appeared on the stadium screen, a professional headshot I'd taken for graduate school applications, wearing a blazer and looking more confident than I'd ever felt in family settings. Sarah Chen, graduating summa cum laude in aerospace engineering with a 3.97 GPA, has conducted groundbreaking research on ion propulsion systems that has resulted in publication in the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets. Her undergraduate thesis work has attracted attention from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and led to job offers from leading aerospace companies. I could see the family section from my seat in the stadium, and even from a distance I could tell that my parents had gone completely still. Sarah will be continuing her education at MIT's graduate program in aeronautics and astronautics, where she has been awarded a full fellowship to pursue research on next-generation propulsion technologies for Mars exploration missions. The applause that followed was thunderous, 107,000 people recognizing achievements that my own family had spent 4 years dismissing as impractical academic exercises. But the most powerful moment came when the screen displayed additional details about my research impact and career prospects. Sarah's research on ion propulsion efficiency has potential applications for NASA's Artemis program and commercial satellite operations. Her starting salary at SpaceX, which she has deferred to pursue graduate studies, would have been $95,000 annually plus equity participation. $95,000 annually. More than Dad's most successful dry cleaning store generated in profit, and more than Amy made managing all 3 locations. The stadium screen showed my research photos from the NASA program, images of the propulsion system I'd helped design, and quotes from professors about my potential contributions to aerospace technology. For 5 minutes, everyone in Michigan Stadium learned about the academic achievements and career prospects that my family had never bothered to understand or acknowledge. After the ceremony, as families gathered on the field for photos and celebrations, my parents approached me with expressions I'd never seen before, a mixture of shock, pride, and what looked like shame. "Sarah," Mom said quietly, "we had no idea about any of those achievements. The awards, the research, the job offers. Why didn't you tell us?" "I tried to tell you. For 4 years I tried to explain my research, my academic performance, my career prospects. But every time I mentioned aerospace engineering, you changed the subject or explained why it wasn't practical." Dad looked around at other families celebrating their graduates, then back at me with something approaching awe. "Sarah, that announcement said you turned down a $95,000 job to go to graduate school. Is that accurate?" "Yes. SpaceX offered me a position on their propulsion development team, but I decided graduate school would provide better long-term career opportunities." "You turned down $95,000 to go back to school?" "Dad, aerospace engineers with graduate degrees typically start at $110,000 to $130,000, and senior engineers can earn over $200,000. The MD fellowship covers all expenses plus a $35,000 annual stipend, so graduate school actually pays me to continue my education." The conversation continued for an hour, with my parents asking detailed questions about my research, my achievements, and the career opportunities they'd spent 4 years assuming didn't exist. "Sarah, I need to apologize," Dad said finally. "We've been treating your education like an expensive hobby instead of recognizing it as preparation for a highly successful career. I measured your success by my own business experience, and I couldn't see that engineering careers develop differently than retail businesses," he continued. "The stadium announcement made me realize how wrong I've been about your potential and your achievements." That conversation led to the most honest discussion about career and recognition that we'd ever had. My parents learned about engineering education, research contributions, and the aerospace industry's growth and salary potential. 6 months later, when I was settled at MIT and working on research that would eventually contribute to NASA's Mars exploration program, our family dynamic had shifted completely. Instead of questioning when I would get a real job, my parents asked about my research findings and their implications for space exploration. Most importantly, they learned to measure success by different metrics than immediate income and familiar career paths. Innovation rather than just profit, expertise rather than just employment, and long-term impact rather than quarterly returns. The graduation announcement had been a catalyst for recognition that should have developed gradually over 4 years of academic achievement, but it forced a reckoning with assumptions that had prevented them from seeing what I was actually accomplishing. If you've made it this far, comment recognized below if you know what it's like to achieve in silence until the world finally sees your worth. The lesson I learned from that graduation ceremony wasn't about family validation or public recognition. It was about the difference between seeking approval and building competence, between proving worth and creating value. For 4 years, I'd wanted my family to understand and appreciate my academic achievements. I'd tried to explain research findings, share career prospects, and help them see the practical value in aerospace engineering education. But understanding requires curiosity, and recognition requires achievement that speaks for itself in contexts people can't dismiss or minimize. My parents couldn't appreciate aerospace engineering because they had no framework for evaluating technical excellence. They measured success by familiar business models and immediate returns on investment. The stadium announcement forced them to see my achievements through external validation they couldn't argue with, university recognition. Asians. But the most important lesson was about persistence in the face of dismissal. Building expertise and competence doesn't require anyone else's permission or approval. The work itself, the learning, the research, the skill development, creates value regardless of whether family members understand or appreciate the process. Success in specialized fields often requires years of preparation that looks impractical to people outside those fields. The mathematics, the theoretical knowledge, the research involvement, all of it serves purposes that become clear only when viewed comprehensively, rather than evaluated by immediate practical applications. The recognition was satisfying, but what mattered most was that I'd spent 4 years developing expertise that would shape my entire career, regardless of whether my family ever understood its value. Tell me about a time when your achievements were invisible to your family until external recognition made them undeniable. How did it feel to finally be seen for work you've been doing quietly, and what would you say to someone whose expertise is still waiting to be acknowledged?